My name is Lily. I'm 27 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've worn two labels that never really belonged to me: broke and worthless. At least, that's what my own family liked to say. To them, I'm the girl who never has the newest bag, the flashiest car, the designer anything. The one who shows up in the same shoes as last year and dares to call that fine. What they don't know, what they never bothered to ask, is that while they were laughing at my so-called poor lifestyle, I was quietly paying for theirs. The mortgage they brag about owning, my direct deposit, the car they love to flex on social media, my signature on the loan, the utility bills that somehow never get cut off, the medical bills that magically disappear, the credit cards that never quite go to collections, all me. I let them talk. I let them sneer. I swallowed every insult, every joke at my expense, because I told myself it was easier to be the silent backbone than the villain who made the family uncomfortable with the truth. But this morning, I opened my laptop, stared at my overflowing inbox, and realized something. The only reason they still see me as worthless is because I've been too scared to show them how much power I actually have. So I drafted one email, one subject line, a few screenshots, a list of transactions, and a CC list long enough to make them sweat. Before I show you exactly what I wrote in that email and what happened the moment they realized who was really paying for their perfect little life, tell me this. What time is it where you are? And where are you watching from? I want to see just how far this story about family, money, and revenge will travel. The first line I typed into that email was simple. Here is a list of everything you've ever called yours that was actually paid for by me. No drama, no insults, just that. Then I started listing mortgage payments, date, amount, confirmation number. Line after line, month after month, highlighted in yellow. Under each one, I added where the money came from. Paid from my checking account ending in 0427. The house they posted online with the caption, "Hard work pays off." My hard work. Then came the car. The sleek, shiny SUV my sister loved to photograph from every angle. I scrolled back through my banking app and pulled the first transfer, the down payment they scraped together. I remembered that day at the dealership so vividly it made my stomach twist. I was 22, sitting on a cheap fake leather chair in a blazer that didn't quite fit right, while my mother and my sister charmed the salesman. Every time he mentioned the co-borrower, they waved their hands and said, "Oh, she's just there to help with the paperwork." Just paperwork, I repeated to myself back then, like a mantra. But when the monthly payments started overdrafting my account, no one called it just paperwork anymore. I screenshotted those payments too. For each image, I wrote one short sentence underneath. You drove this. I paid for this. It felt cold. It also felt true. With every item I added, a memory attached itself to the line like a shadow that wouldn't let go. I was 19, working my first office job, taking the bus because I couldn't afford a car yet. My phone buzzed one afternoon with a text from my mom. "Call me. Emergency." When I stepped into the hallway, she was already crying. "They're going to take the house, Lily. We're 3 months behind. I don't know what to do." I remember sliding down the wall, my heart pounding. I had a tiny emergency fund I'd built from saying no to coffee runs, splitting meals with friends, and pretending I wasn't hungry when I really was. I wired everything I had to her that same day. No questions, no judgment, no lecture. I told myself, it's fine, I'm young, I'll rebuild. She posted a family picture in front of the house a week later with the caption, "Grateful for our blessings." I wasn't mentioned. The bank transfer wasn't either. That was the first time I realized something. My sacrifices weren't just invisible, they were convenient to forget. As I kept typing, the list grew ugly in its honesty. Utilities, electricity, gas, water. Every time they bragged about never letting the lights go out, it was because I'd quietly stepped in before the shutoff notice turned into a truck outside their house. I added the receipts from the times I'd woken up to a frantic call. Lily, the power company made a mistake. We're about to get cut off. Can you just cover it this once? Just this once. Repeated so many times it turned into background noise. Then there were the medical bills. Those were the ones that hurt the most. Not just because of the money, but because of the emotional blackmail attached. You know I'd do it for you, my mom would say. The difference was, she'd say it. I'd actually do it. I attached confirmation emails from hospitals, pharmacies, labs. Under each one I added, "Covered in full by me so no collections would call you." I wasn't trying to humiliate them. I was documenting a history they'd erased. Between attachments, I caught myself hovering over the delete key, wondering if I was being petty. Was I overreacting? Was I blowing things out of proportion? Then I remembered sitting at a family dinner when I was 24, exhausted from working overtime to catch up on my own rent because I'd bailed them out again. My mother lifted her glass and joked, "We all know Lily's not good with money. She's always too broke for nice things." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, but my stomach twisted so hard I couldn't finish my food. No one at that table knew I had paid their late fees the week before. No one asked why I was too broke. I was just the joke. So I scrolled back to the top of the email and added another line. "You've spent years calling me irresponsible without ever asking where the money you needed came from." I decided to structure the email like an invoice, not because they owed me all that money back. I'd already accepted I was never seeing it again, but because I wanted them to understand the scale of what they'd taken for granted. I grouped things into sections: housing, transportation, emergencies, lifestyle. Under lifestyle, I listed the credit card payments I'd made when they accidentally maxed out cards on vacations, dinners, and gifts they couldn't afford. I remembered one Christmas when my sister posted a photo haul of her presents with the caption, "When your family spoils you because you're worth it." What the photo didn't show was me sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my own bank account in the red because I'd paid off the card they used for just a few last-minute gifts. I put those payments in the email too. Underneath, I wrote, "You said you deserve to be spoiled. This is what it cost me." At one point, I stopped typing and just stared at the glowing screen. The document was long now, pages of proof, numbers, receipts that didn't care about feelings or excuses. My hands were shaking, but not from anger, from clarity. I realized how long I'd been telling myself a story that kept me stuck. They don't understand, but they love me. This is what family does. Money is just money. But that wasn't true, was it? Because if money were just money, they wouldn't weaponize my lack of visible wealth against me every time they wanted a laugh. If love was really the foundation here, respect wouldn't be so conditional on optics and performance. I sat back in my chair and breathed out slowly. Then, almost without thinking, I typed a question into the email, right after the invoice-style breakdown. At what point does helping your family stop being love and start becoming self-destruction? I didn't know if they'd even read that line, but I needed it there for me. The last thing I added before closing the draft was a short paragraph, measured and emotionless. "I'm not sharing this to hurt you. I'm sharing this because you've built a version of reality where I am broke, irresponsible, and worthless, while quietly relying on me to survive. Both cannot be true. You don't get to mock the person whose name is on the payments that keep your life afloat." I read the email from top to bottom, my chest tight, my teeth clenched. Then I did exactly what I'd always done at this stage. I hit save draft instead of send. Some old habits don't break easily. My cursor blinked on the screen like it was daring me to be brave. I closed the laptop. I told myself I'd never actually send it. I had no idea that the next message I'd get, an invitation to yet another perfect family dinner, would be the final straw that turned this draft I'd never send into the match that burned their whole facade to the ground. Family dinner on Saturday. My place. Don't be weird, just come. The text from Victoria popped up with a photo attached, like she always does. In the picture, her dining table was already half set, plates lined up on a long, polished surface, crystal glasses catching the light from a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She loved staging these little previews, like trailers for the life she wanted everyone to believe she lived. What she never seemed to realize was that every perfectly angled shot of that table, every curated detail in the background, was a reminder to me of how many times my bank account had bled so that room could stay fully furnished and fully lit. I stared at her message for a long minute. On any other week, I would have started building excuses in my head. I am tired. I have a deadline. I have to work late. I would choose peace over humiliation, stay home on my couch, and hope that skipping one dinner would mean skipping a fresh round of jokes at my expense. But this time, something in me refused to run. Instead of opening our chat again, I opened my email. The draft stared back at me, waiting. The subject line I had written earlier felt almost too calm for what was inside. It said, "What you call yours versus what was actually mine." I sat there and watched the cursor blink, then I deleted it and typed a new one. "Read this before you say another word about my money." It felt harsher. It also felt honest. I started adding names to the recipient list, and I was deliberate. First, my mother. Then my sister. After that, I added the rest of the inner circle. The people who always seemed to be present when the jokes landed the hardest. The aunts who loved to whisper in corners about who was doing better than whom. The cousins who laughed along a little too loudly whenever my mother called me dramatic or irresponsible. The uncle who never missed a chance to ask if I had finally figured out how to be a proper adult yet. Then I moved to the CC line. That was where the real pressure lived. I added the family friend my mother was always desperate to impress, the one who thought she was the image of strength and independence. I added a couple from church who ran the community group where my mother liked to position herself as the wise, stable matriarch who had it all figured out. Line by line, I built an audience for the truth. Not to humiliate them for sport, but to make it impossible for them to twist the story back into something that made me the problem. When I was done, I did not hit send. My finger hovered over the button, my chest tight. And then I remembered their faces at previous dinners, the way my mother would look around the table before delivering a punchline at my expense, like she was warming up a crowd. I did not want another night like that. I wanted consequences. So I clicked on the schedule option instead. I set it for the next morning at 9 o'clock. That felt right. Late enough that everyone would be awake. Early enough that they would still be scrolling through their phones, sipping coffee, planning their day, before realizing their entire version of reality had just been rewritten in their inbox. I sat back in my chair and looked at the small confirmation on the screen. Email scheduled. Then I closed the laptop and went to get ready for dinner. My hands moved on autopilot, picking out the same simple black dress I had worn before. It was clean, neat, and comfortable, but nothing about it was flashy. The last time I had worn it, my mother had laughed and called it recession chic in front of everyone. I remember pretending to laugh along while silently doing mental math about how much I had left after covering one of her emergencies that week. I slipped the dress on anyway. I was done dressing for their approval. On the way to Victoria's place, I watched the city go by through the bus window. Cafes setting up for the evening, couples heading out, lights flickering on in apartment windows. Somewhere in that same city, my money was sitting quietly in houses and cars that did not have my name on them, propping up a life that I was never allowed to fully belong to. I got off a stop earlier than usual just to breathe before I walked into the performance. When I reached her building, I could hear music before I even stepped out of the elevator. Laughter and clinking glasses spilled down the hallway, the kind of noise that says everything is perfect here. Do not look too closely. I knocked and the door flew open. "Lily, you are actually on time," Victoria said, smiling wide and air kissing my cheek. "Miracles do happen." She smelled like expensive perfume and her makeup was flawless, every hair in place. She took the dessert box from my hands and glanced down at it. "Homemade again," she said, raising an eyebrow, making sure the people nearest the door could hear. "Still cannot afford catering?" A couple of people standing nearby laughed, not loudly but enough. My mother appeared behind her, glass of wine in hand, eyes already bright with that sharp energy she got whenever there was an audience. "There you are," she said, giving me a quick hug that felt more like posing for a picture than affection. "We were just saying we hoped you would not cancel last minute because your bank account had a panic attack." More laughter around us, and a few sympathetic looks that did nothing to soften the sting. I walked past them into the dining room, and it was exactly what I expected. The table from the photo now fully set with candles, heavy cutlery, and plates that looked like they had never seen a dishwasher. Bottles of wine lined up on the sideboard, labels turned outward on purpose. Little touches everywhere to say we are doing well. We are not like those people who struggle. I took my seat near the middle of the table, close enough to be part of conversations, far enough from the head of the table where my mother liked to sit and steer everything. As people settled, phones came out, photos were snapped, and I watched one cousin angle her camera carefully to capture the table and my sister's outfit, but not the fact that she was behind on payments for the car parked outside. For a moment, I felt the old familiar urge to shrink, to make myself small and quiet and agreeable so the night would pass without too much damage. Then I remembered the email waiting on the server, set to send itself in less than 12 hours. I remembered the subject line, the receipts, the total. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel powerless in that room. They could still laugh. They could still take their shots. But the clock was ticking now, and none of them knew it. I let myself smile, just a little, as my mother raised her glass for the first toast. Tonight, they saw the same Lily they always thought they understood. Tomorrow morning, when they opened their inbox, they would finally meet the version of me they had been living off without ever acknowledging, the one who knew exactly what she was worth, down to the last cent. Dinner was exactly what I expected. Soft music, nice plates, my sister's apartment dressed up like a showroom. Everyone talked about work wins, trips, and new things they had bought. My mom sat at the head of the table with a glass of wine, telling stories about how she had always kept this family together, how she was the one who made sure nothing ever fell apart. People nodded, laughed, topped off her glass. I sat in the middle, the quiet one in a plain black dress, thinking about the email waiting in my outbox, scheduled for 9 tomorrow morning, full of proof that the story they loved telling was not the whole truth. For a while, I did what I always do, faded into the background. My sister bragged about her spa membership and a trip she wanted to recharge. An aunt complimented the apartment and the car parked downstairs. Nobody mentioned late notices or calls from the bank. Nobody mentioned the nights they had called me because something was about to be cut off. To them, I was still the Lily who did not travel, who wore the same clothes more than once, who always said she was watching her budget. That version of me made sense to them. It made their own choices look better. The first hit came exactly when I knew it would. My mom set her fork down and looked straight at me. "So, Lily," she said, stretching my name. "How is life in that little apartment? Still pretending you like living like that? Or are you finally ready to admit you just cannot keep up?" A few people laughed. My sister smiled, waiting to join in. I took a breath, put my fork down, and met my mom's eyes. Normally, I would have shrugged, made a joke, moved on. Tonight, I stayed voyant. My life is fine, I said. My rent is paid. My lights stay on. My fridge has food. I am okay. My mom gave a small, disbelieving laugh. Oh, come on, she replied. Every time we invite you somewhere, you say you are broke. You bring homemade food instead of just sending money. You never join us on trips. At some point, you have to admit you are struggling. That is not a crime. Victoria jumped in. Exactly, she said. You work constantly, but what do you have to show for it? No vacations, no upgrades, nothing fun. That is not a strategy. That is just being broke. Broke. They loved that word when it came to me. They said it lightly, but it landed heavy every time. It used to cut right through me. After building that email and seeing my life in numbers, it just sounded lazy. You really think I am broke? I asked. My mom shook her head, still smiling. Lily, she said, you are almost 30 and still living like a student. You always talk about how tight things are. We are not attacking you. We worry about you. You could worry less and ask more, I said. None of you ever ask why I say no. You just decide I am failing. My sister rolled her eyes. Here we go, she muttered. The mystery speech. If you are struggling, just say it. Do not try to make us feel bad because you made bad decisions. I looked at the necklace around her neck, the one I remembered from a bill I had helped pay. I looked at the car keys on the table, attached to the car I had co-signed for. My throat tightened. I was not choking on shame this time, just on everything I could have said. I am not trying to make anybody feel bad, I said. I am asking you to think. How do you think so many things in this family have stayed afloat? The table went quiet. My uncle stopped mid-sentence. An aunt set her glass down. My mom's smile faded. What are you trying to say? She asked. That we cannot handle our own lives. That we are using you. We are family. Families lean on each other. You are acting like you are some kind of hero. Leaning on each other means both sides get support, I replied. Has that ever really been true for me? No one answered. The silence sat between us, heavier than any joke they had thrown at me. My sister finally spoke. So we have needed help sometimes, she said. Who has not? That does not mean you get to act like we owe you everything. You do not owe me everything, I said. You owe me respect. You owe me not turning me into a story about how broke I am while I am the one making sure certain bills get paid and certain things do not get taken away. The word bills changed something in my mom's face before she forced another laugh. Listen to yourself, she said. What bills? You make it sound like we are drowning. We always find a way. You find a way, I answered, because someone has been catching you every time you fall. My voice was even. My heart was pounding hard enough to feel it in my hands. After that, nobody slipped fully back into the easy rhythm they loved. People tried to change the subject. Jokes landed, but not quite right. I caught a cousin looking at me like he was replaying old moments in his head. My mom went back to her stories, but her eyes flicked toward me more often, as if she was trying to measure how far I was willing to go. When I stood to clear plates, my mom followed me into the kitchen. Away from the table, her voice dropped. Whatever you are planning, she said, do not forget who raised you, who took you in, who gave you everything you have. I set the dishes down and turned. You gave me a home, I said. I will always be grateful for that. But you did not give me everything. I have given you a lot too. More than you have ever admitted. Her jaw clenched. You are playing a dangerous game, Lily, she warned. Do not make a mistake you cannot fix. I walked past her back toward the hall. I already did, I said. I let this go on for years. Later, when I stepped outside, the air felt colder than when I arrived. On the sidewalk, my phone buzzed with a notification from the family group chat. A photo appeared. Everyone around the table, arms linked, smiling at the camera, glasses raised. The caption said, "Family over everything." I stared at my own face on the edge of the frame, half turned away. They still believed that. They still believed the joke was on me. Tomorrow morning, when they woke up and saw my name in their inbox, they were finally going to learn what family over everything had really meant. One person paying the price while everybody else laughed. For almost 3 years, my parents existed in my life like background noise. There, but easy to tune out. A stiff, happy holidays email, the occasional forwarded chain message. A birthday text sent hours late with a generic, "Hope you're well," tacked on like an afterthought. I didn't answer most of it. I was busy being someone else, someone I chose. Under the name Dr. Madison Murphy, my days were full. The clinic was always packed. I was the person people came to when their own family said, "You're overreacting," and they needed someone to tell them they weren't crazy. At night, I wrote. The blog that had started as a small secret diary for strangers kept growing. More comments, more shares, more private messages that all sounded like variations on the same sentence. I thought it was just me. Then, one of my posts, "The Ghost Child and the Golden Child," got picked up by a mid-sized online magazine that focused on mental health and family dynamics. It was the most personal thing I'd written yet, a thinly veiled autopsy of my own childhood. They asked if they could republish it. I agreed, on one condition. They use Dr. M, psychologist, name changed for safety. No full name, no location, just the truth, scrubbed of identifying details, but not of impact. I hit send, closed my laptop, and went back to my life. For a few days, nothing changed. Then the article went live. At lunch one afternoon, my phone started buzzing. Unknown number. I let it ring. It buzzed again, and again. Then a text. "Madison, please, it's Mom. It's important." My stomach dropped in that old familiar way, the way it used to when I saw the school's phone number flash on the landline and knew I'd get in trouble for something my brother did. I stared at the screen until the call went to voicemail, then set the phone face down on my desk and finished my sandwich like nothing was happening. That night, I finally listened. In the first voicemail, my mother's voice sounded wrong. Not calm, not superior. Fractured. "Madison, if this is still your number, I think that article was about us," she said. "People are talking. Your father is furious. Your brother is losing clients, sponsors. They don't want to work with someone from a family that would do that to their daughter. Is that what you wanted? To punish us?" There it was. Not. We read it and realized how much we hurt you. Just. You're making us look bad. The second voicemail came a few hours later, voice sharper, almost scolding. "This is our private business. I cannot believe you would paint us as abusers on the internet. It was one misunderstanding, and now you're making us look like monsters. Take it down. Fix it." One misunderstanding. My chest actually hurt at that. Years of missed events, of "don't be dramatic," of choosing my brother's needs over mine, boiled down to one misunderstanding they believed I should quietly swallow. I played the messages for Ava the next day after our last session. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. "There it is," she said. "They didn't call because they suddenly saw you. They called because other people are finally seeing them." Am I going too far? I asked, hating the waver in my voice. Ava frowned. "You wrote about your experience. You didn't name them. You didn't fabricate anything. They built the house. You turned the lights on. If they don't like what it looks like, that's not on you." I wanted to believe her. A part of me still heard my dad's voice, though. Families handle things privately. You don't embarrass us in front of other people. That sentence had been used to shut me up my whole life. Later that evening, alone on my couch, I opened my email. A new message sat at the top of my inbox, subject line: Interview request, family estrangement story. A journalist who specialized in stories about toxic families, no-contact kids, and cultural expectations had read my article. They wanted to do a longer, anonymous piece. Your perspective as both a psychologist and someone who has walked away from their family is powerful, they wrote. We think it could help a lot of people who are being told they're overreacting to neglect. While I read, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number from my hometown area code. Another voicemail. This one was shorter. My mother's voice was raw. Please call me. We're desperate. Not, I miss you. Not, I'm sorry. Just, we're desperate. Desperate because my brother's Family Man brand was cracking after that leaked barbecue video. Desperate because the article gave people words for the kind of neglect they'd always brushed off as normal. Desperate because, for the first time, I wasn't the only one paying for their choices. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. My mind did what it always does. Turned the situation into a therapy session I couldn't bill for. One voice in my head sounded like the child version of me, 16, sitting on the edge of her bed in a dress she bought herself for an award ceremony her parents left early. If you pick up, she whispered, they'll say you're too sensitive again. They'll say you misunderstood. You'll cry, they'll sigh, and nothing will change. Please don't put me back in that room. Another voice, newer and sharper, sounded like Ava. You finally have leverage. Don't hand it back for free. Ask yourself who benefits if you make this easier for them. I shut my eyes and imagined the cafe from my hometown where we used to go after church. My younger self sat across from me in that mental picture, wearing my old hand-me-down jeans, knees bouncing, phone clutched in both hands. They're still your parents, she said quietly. And I'm still their daughter, I answered. But when has that ever protected me? She didn't have an answer. She just looked tired. The way I remembered feeling all the time back then. I opened my eyes. The empty apartment around me felt very far from that old house, that old version of me. I picked up my phone again. The screen glowed with my mother's last text. We're desperate. For what? I said out loud. For me? Or for damage control? The silence answered for her. I didn't call back that night. Instead, I replied to the journalist. An anonymous interview is fine, I typed, but I won't be softening what happened to make anyone more comfortable. My finger hovered over send for a long second. Somewhere inside me, that teenage voice whispered, Are you sure? This could make everything worse. Then another part of me, the woman who walked across a stage alone while her parents flipped burgers, answered, It's already as bad as it can be with them. This might make it better for someone else. I hit send. Only then did I open a new text to my mother and type, I got your messages. I'm not ready to talk. When I decide to, it will be on my terms. In public, where you can't rewrite what happened. Until then, you'll have to live with what you did, and with people finally seeing it. I didn't wait for a response. I muted the thread, put the phone face down, and let the quiet fill the room. Question for you. When someone only reaches out after your silence finally costs them money, status, and the mask they've worn for years, do they deserve your voice back, or just the echo of their own choices? In the end, I did call back, but not to apologize. If we talk, I told my mother, it has to be in public. Neutral place. No yelling, no pretending it was all a misunderstanding. You tell the truth, or there's nothing to say. She agreed instantly, which was almost suspicious. We picked a cafe halfway between my city and theirs, a crowded place with big windows and nowhere for anyone to hide. When I walked in, I spotted them immediately. My mom looked smaller than I remembered, lines etched deeper into her face. My dad looked exactly the same, just older, jaw clenched, arms crossed, anger hiding under a layer of calm. My mom stood like she wanted to hug me. I stopped just out of reach. "Hi," I said. "It's Dr. Murphy now." My dad's eyes flickered. He didn't like that. We sat. There was an awkward dance of menus and coffee orders, like we were strangers on a bad first date. As soon as the waiter left, my mom leaned in. "We're under attack," she began. "Ever since that article, people have been judging us. Your brother's sponsors are pulling out. Clients are avoiding him. Your father's position at the club is in question. This is hurting our whole family." I pulled my phone out, opened the family chat screenshot from my graduation day, and slid it across the table. My message: "Today I became Dr. Madison Carter. You chose burgers over being there. I won't forget that." Her reply: "We said we'd celebrate next week. Why are you making this about drama?" And beneath that, my dad's voice recording: "Don't be dramatic. It's just a ceremony." "You mean this?" I asked. "This is what I described. You're upset that people finally see it." My dad's mouth tightened. "We made a mistake. People make mistakes. That doesn't mean you get to smear us online and destroy our lives." "Interesting choice of words," I said. "Because when you skipped my doctorate graduation, that was not just a mistake. It was a choice. You didn't forget. You prioritized convenience. I just wrote down what happened." My mom's eyes brimmed with tears. "You're twisting things. We have always supported you. We paid for your books, your rent. We were proud of you." "You were proud in theory," I cut in. "But when it came time to show up, you didn't. Not in high school, not in college, and not when it mattered most." "Did you forget leaving early from my high school graduation to get to his practice game, or skipping my scholarship reception because he needed the car?" They went quiet. A couple at the next table glanced over, but I didn't lower my voice. Let them hear. For once, I wanted witnesses. "We tried our best," my mom whispered. I laughed once, softly. "No, you tried your best with him. With me, you did the bare minimum and called it parenting. And when I finally pointed at the pattern, you called me dramatic." My dad leaned forward, voice low but hard. "We are not villains in your little revenge story. Families have problems, but you don't take them to the internet. That's betrayal." "You want to talk about betrayal?" I asked. "You betrayed me every time you made it clear I was optional. All I did was stop keeping your secret. That's not betrayal. That's disclosure." I pulled a printed copy of the article from my bag and tapped the pages. "Do you know how many people wrote to me because of this?" I said. "People who went through the same thing. People who thought they were crazy because their families told them their pain was no big deal. You're not mad that I lied. You're mad that I told the truth where other people could hear it." My mom's tears finally spilled over. "So what do you want? You want us to grovel? You want us to admit we're awful parents?" I met her gaze. "I wanted you to show up. When you didn't, I wanted you to own it. Not spin it. Not excuse it. Own it." The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match we'd ever had. My dad broke it. "You've made your point," he said stiffly. "You've punished us. So now what? You come home. We move past this. You're our daughter. Question for you. If the people who broke you only admit they're hurting when their comfort is threatened, do they deserve to keep calling you family?" There was a time when hearing "you're our daughter" would have shattered me, sent me running back just to be loved a little. Sitting in that cafe, I felt tired. Not angry, not hysterical. Just done. "No," I said finally. "I'm not coming home." My mom recoiled like I'd slapped her. "You can't mean that," she whispered. "We're still your parents." "Biologically, yes," I replied. "Emotionally? You fired yourselves a long time ago. I just finally accepted it." My dad scoffed. "You changed a name on some papers and now you think that erases blood?" I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside were copies of my legal documents: court order, updated license, professional registration. I slid them across the table. "This doesn't erase blood," I said. "It erases entitlement. This is the name on my degrees, my clinic door, my writing. Madison Murphy. That's who I am now. You don't get to use the old name to drag me back into a role that nearly killed me." My mom's hands trembled as she unfolded the papers. Tears blurred the ink. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're erasing us from your life?" I shook my head. "No. I'm just refusing to let you keep erasing me from mine. I invited you into my milestones. Again and again, you chose something else. I believed you. I finally adjusted my life to match what you showed me." My dad's voice rose, telling me I was overreacting, that normal families had worse issues, that I was blowing one event out of proportion. I cut him off. "This isn't about one barbecue. It's about a lifetime of learning that I came second to convenience, second to schedules, second to your golden child. My doctorate was just the moment I got proof. The day you confirmed that even at my highest, I still wasn't worth a drive." My mom reached across the table, grabbing my wrist. "We can fix this," she begged. "We'll apologize publicly if that's what you want. We'll tell people we were wrong. Just don't throw away your family." I gently pulled my hand back. "You can't fix rot with fresh paint. You have to tear out the damaged parts. For me, that means tearing myself out of this system where I'm only loved when it doesn't cost you anything." I stood, the chair scraping softly. "From now on, if anyone asks you about me, tell the truth. Tell them you had a daughter who became the first doctor in the family, and you chose a barbecue over her graduation. Tell them you called her dramatic. Tell them you only reached out when her story started costing you money and status." My dad glared up at me, eyes fierce. "You're going to regret this one day," he hissed. I looked at him and realized the spell was broken. His disapproval no longer felt like a death sentence. "Maybe I will," I said. "But I already regret every year I spent begging for scraps of love from people who couldn't bother to sit in a chair and clap. I'd rather regret walking away than regret never doing it." I picked up my bag. My mom's voice cracked behind me, saying my old last name like a spell that used to work. It didn't. I walked out of the cafe, out into the sunlight, and for the first time in my life, the word selfish didn't sting. It felt like self-defense. In the months that followed, the texts came in waves: anger, guilt, bargaining, nostalgia. Then, eventually, silence. Through relatives, I heard that my brother's reputation took a hit, that my parents complained about being slandered, but still never actually explained what they'd done. That's fine. My revenge was never about them admitting guilt. My revenge was simple. I took myself away. I built a life under a name they don't get to claim. My patients know me as the doctor who believes them. My friends know me as the woman who will show up. Because she knows what it's like when people don't. My chosen family knows I will never pick a barbecue over their milestones. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that empty seat at my graduation and the full chairs at my brother's party, and I feel something close to peace, because I finally understand blood is not a free pass to hurt someone without consequences. The real twist isn't that I changed my name, it's that I stopped believing family automatically meant home. So I'll leave you with this. When the people who share your blood treat you like you're optional, is staying to keep the peace an act of loyalty? Or is walking away the first real act of love you show yourself?